Good. All right, you guys. So now I'll say welcome to this is our May live draw for Eat, Paint, Live, which is my company for plein air painting. So I have my studio work that I do in the studio, and then I have plein air, and we do these live draws every month as a way to learn concepts and practice them in the studio so that when we go out and we paint outside, we're not doing lessons outside. We're just enjoying ourselves and getting right down to painting. So I missed May because I was so busy. So we'll do another one in June. Actually, we're going to have a second one at the end of this month. So I don't want to cheat anyone out. I promise everybody we're going to do one a month. So I want to say welcome. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be simplifying boats. Boats was always a very challenging subject, intimidating subject for me. Because I just didn't really know how to approach them, and I don't really know anything about boats. I mean, I've been on them, but as a New Yorker, I've been on boats. I used to go fishing all the time, but I never really thought about them as a painting subject. And then when I came out here and I started to plein air paint here in Southern California, especially with my group, which is called SoCal Papa, we have weekly paintouts, and many of them are at either Balboa Island, the Newport Basin, or some other place like the Back Bay Aquatic Center, where there are boats everywhere. And I just saw everyone tackling them in oil painting, but I didn't have anybody to look to in the group who was doing them in watercolor. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make them stand out against the water. I didn't know how to simplify them. They just seemed really intimidating to me, especially when there was a group. Like I could stick a sailboat on something, but other than that, I really just didn't know how to do it. So I started hearing that from a lot of you guys too. And then when we went to Two Harbors in April, I did a mini lesson on boats because there's two harbors there full of boats. So of course that was going to be our painting subject, right? So it was so popular, I thought that I would reprise it for everybody. So that's what we're going to do today. What I'll do is I'll do a PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint is going to be less instructional and more just illustrative, where I'll show you something and then we're going to sketch it. We'll show you a technique and then we'll sketch it. So there'll be a lot of like mini little sketching episodes throughout the course of our 2 hours together. And then in the second half, we'll bring out the paints and we'll just do more painting than sketching. Okay. So I know I already said this before the recording started, but you can use any implement. I'm going to use my notebook for sketches, and sometimes I use a pencil, a pen. I'll probably use a pen a little bit today because it shows up better on the video. And then any of you who just want to paint instead of pencil, just do your drawing with a paintbrush. That'll be considered direct watercolor for this month's challenge of the 30 by 30 direct watercolor. If you guys don't know about that, go to the Facebook group, 30 by 30 direct watercolor. It's amazing. I started it yesterday. It really helps you loosen up and be free and not be so concerned about like accuracy with your pencil drawing, and just more freedom to feel what you're doing rather than be so technical about it. It really helps me. By the end of the month, I'm super loosened up and confident. So, and then as for painting, you could use any paper, any color paint, any paintbrush. Okay. So before we start, does anyone have any questions or comments? Marcia gave us a great tip before. Make sure you have a nice bright light. I have a new light, you guys, so that's exciting. Okay, no questions. I'll put a tip jar at the end, and throughout in the middle, I'll put one. It'll also be on the thank you. And this recording will be up this evening. It will go up. Okay. All right, so let's get started then, shall we? I'm going to share my PowerPoint. We're all visual people, right? So what I called this when I taught it in Two Harbors was 5-minute boats, how to capture boats in 5 minutes. And here's a little boat sketch that I did in 10 minutes, okay? Took a little bit longer. But the key to 5-minute boats is to not be intimidated. Just refuse to be intimidated, number one, okay? For those of you guys who are intimidated, I know some of you are. Just say, I'm not gonna let myself be. And the key is to simplify. So don't for those of you guys who don't know boats, who don't understand what you're looking at when you look at out at a harbor full of boats, which is me. I don't know. My brother's a boater. His best friend has a sailboat and is an instructor. But I don't know, like a mainmast from a rigging. I have no idea. But what I do see is I see shape and I see proportion. So for those of you guys who even do know a lot about boats, I would say try to simplify things and use your observational skills without thinking too much about your knowledge of stern, bow, fore, aft, and all of those little riggings. Don't get bogged down in all that knowledge, and don't get bogged down in the detail. So I might not know what I'm looking at, but I know that I can see when the mast is taller than the length of the boat. So I know I can visualize that. So that's something that I think about. I think about the shape and I think about the proportion. Okay. Again, I think I just forget that it's a boat, and I look at the world in shapes. Some of you guys look at the world in colors or line or form. I mostly see shapes. So shape is really easy for me. You can add shadow and color and create form later. But what I first start with is shape. And when we did our drawing and we drew by using shapes and we drew by using lines, some of you guys will remember we did those live draws a few months ago. You flesh out that shape afterwards. But the first thing I start to think is I see shapes. I see maybe a rectangle, a triangle, a parallelogram. So I start looking at the shapes, and we're going to do that in just a little bit. Okay, we're going to look at boats from all angles, and we're going to get to know the shapes of boats from those angles. Now, I'm talking about the boats we see around here in California. All boats are different. And that's something I'll talk about later when you get to, perhaps you go on vacation and you go to Venice. A gondola may be very, very different from the white sailboats and pleasure cruisers that we're used to seeing around Southern California. Okay. But they still have a shape. They still have a pattern of lights and darks. And so that's what I'm looking for. And I don't worry about the details until the very end. I take about 2/3 of those details out. Okay. So we'll be using our squinting quite a bit to get rid of details and just see shape and pattern of dark and light. And when I'm outside, I'll do the same exact thing. Just squint, or I take off my sunglasses, because those of you guys who know me know I need my sunglasses to see in the distance. If you take them off, you're already blurring everything. Okay. So the first thing let's talk about is that boats look different from different directions, different positions. Sometimes you're in the harbor, and when you first look out, it looks like the boats are all either facing you or they're all at a 3/4 angle. That might be when the water is still. But if you see the boats or you paint them from just one viewing point, one position, it can be very boring. It can be very tedious in a painting, and it can seem false. So the most important thing I think to do to make your painting interesting, regardless of what you're actually seeing in the harbor, is to vary the position and the angles of those boats. Okay, then you can also vary the details as well. So you could see in these pictures, I have practiced my boat shapes. I'm showing and sketching boats from the side, where I show a little bit of the back, from the full side on, from head on, a 3/4 view, a full back view, and then even overhead. In my head on, it's really 100% head on. In the back view, it's a tiny sliver of 3/4. Okay. So we're going to practice these shapes today. So observation is key, right? And if you practice these shapes, then when you look out again, you're going to know what you're looking at. So for those of you guys who were in two harbors with me, I'm looking to see, I know Diane was, right? Diane, we did this, right? And in the beginning, you'd think, what am I looking at? She's
got my little thingy.
Great. And then the more you practice, you just start almost developing a shorthand. So when you're sketching, you see a boat, and maybe it's hard to draw, but you go, oh, that's a front and a side. So you start with that, right? Maybe it's moving. We had some boats that were really moving on us while they were moored and they were flipping around. But because you have already shorthanded that on paper in your brain, it's easier to know what you're looking at. And you can sort of almost in your brain stop time and say, I'm going to draw that one from the side on. And then I'm going to draw that one from the back. And also remember, you can design your own painting. So it can be quite boring in the harbor if you see everything is on the side, because sometimes the water is still and everything is moored the same way. Some harbors have rules about how they moor their boats. We're talking about boats that are still, not the ones that are in motion, right? But even that said, most of these boats that you see here in my little 2 harbor sketch, most of them are angled toward the shore. But the ones in the foreground are 3/4 or almost head on, just for visual interest, right? So that's something that's really important. When we get, I wanted to show you a grouping, but we're going to actually draw them right now. So you can get out your sketch materials. And here's 2 photos of boats where they are head on, okay? So everybody looking at that. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take out my sketchbook. And I always ask the group, because I don't have 2 cameras. I'm not that fancy yet. Would you guys like for me to show you in the little screen what I'm doing, or in the big screen? We'll do both, okay, we'll do both. So let's take a stab at, we've got, just take 2 minutes and take a stab at this on your own. I'm gonna just do mine in pen. And you could do either of those boats, you can do both of them. One of them is like a small, I don't even know what it is. It might be just a small fishing boat or something. See, I don't know what I'm looking at. And then the other one is a sailboat and has a tall mast. So you can do them both, or you can pick and choose. But what I see when I'm looking at is I go straight to the front of the boat and I look at the shape. I'm ignoring all the detail. And I'll show you in a minute what I've captured in the very simplest of shorthand. Sometimes it's so far away that you're like, I don't even really know what I'm looking at. But once you learn how to draw the boats, it's really easy to know for the next time what you're looking at. But just take a moment, don't sweat it, and just try to look at the shape. What do you see? Does it look more like a rectangle? So the boat on the right, to me, I see a rectangle with 3 rectangles inside the cabin. And then in the front, I see an oblong shape. What can like a dish, or what would you call that? Like a saucer almost. Okay. So I'm going to stop the share because it's that quick, right? So did you guys end up with something akin to these shapes? Mm-hmm. Okay. So good. That's awesome. So I'll show you something right here. I'm going to just change my visualizer so you can see how much brighter my world is now here on video. So what I look at is I see, and this is important, that this is curved and this is curved. This curve gives you that really important shape. And then this is curved up because this is a pretty tall hull of the boat. Some hulls of the boat will be more shallow, like a rowboat. Okay, so some might be more like that. This one is quite high. I might not have the proportion 100%, but it's quite high. Then I see a rectangle. There's actually a smaller rectangle here. Don't know if I need it. And then I just drew it so fast, but I think it's actually a little taller. 3 little rectangles in there. What else? There's a little detail here. What else did I miss? We'll talk about this in a little bit, but there's a buoy here, right? And it's ending in the water. And then if we want to get fancy, there's some reflections and there's another buoy here. And there's all sorts of stuff hanging off the boat. That's up to you how much you want to draw it, right? There's something over here. If you're drawing just this one boat, those details might be really important because they're helping you add a little bit more to your main subject, right? There's a whole lot of stuff going on that I'm just not going to draw at all, though. There's all these little things on top of the boat. If your boat is the main subject, you may want to capture all those things. And I'll show you a couple pictures later where you've got like a boat or a couple boats that are front and center in the painting. But if your boat is just a supporting character, or if you have several of them, you may not want that much detail. So imagine in the picture on the left of the boats, the sailboat, the tall one, and I made this hull too high. I can see that now. I will adjust it, which should really be here. But I did it so fast. Imagine that you're drawing this whole scene of boats. You don't want to add too many more details, do you? Because once you do that, it's a hot mess. So once you have all these boats that are back here, you know, and you start drawing them in, you're going to have like just way too much going on. So remember I said 2/3 of the detail, you got to get rid of it, especially if you have a group of boats. So let's talk about this boat because it has the same sort of shape to the hull. I made it a little higher than it should be, so it should be a little bit more shallow, but you still have like a bowing out at the end, comes forward here. This is a perspective thing. So if you're not good at drawing, just remember that you have to bow that out, because if you do it too flat, it just looks like a box, right? Okay. So then the really important thing is you've got the cabin and then you've got a straight mast going up. Look at how tall that mast is. Take your pencil, try to eyeball it. So how tall is that mast compared to the boat, body of the boat? It's like 3.5, 4 times as high. That gives you that sense of this is a really nice sailboat, right? And then you've got a couple shapes that you can capture to make it look more sailboaty here. And again, we're going to just remember there's a little buoy here. And then if you want to add details, there's that little detail line here. And there's a few darks on the top of the cabin, etc. They just shorthand them into shapes. There's something up here at the top, you know. So once you've got the general shape of the boat is when you can start deciding how many more details do you want to put in there. So this is the boat from the front. And again, we're always going to add a reflection or a shadow, and we'll talk about that later. One thing that's important is to not make the boat like the same shape on the bottom, because it will just look like a bathtub that's floating, or a little top, you know, that's floating, a toy that's floating in your bathtub. Boats are heavy. So the majority of this bottom of this boat is going to be underwater, right? If this is the water line. So you're only getting a little bit for perspective wise that's coming forward. This kind of angle here, that's way too much. It's just going to look like the boat is like a rubber ducky floating on top. So remember, a lot of your boat is under the water. And that's also why it's darker here at the edge, because it's a shadow and it's a reflection of what's going on underneath. Does that make sense? Okay. So anybody have one they're especially proud of that they want to share how it came out? It's the first one, so it's okay, but I'm giving you guys the chance. No? Okay. How about we do another one then? So, sorry, sometimes when I toggle, it just takes a second. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the boat from another angle now. There we go. Okay, so this is the boat where you can see 3/4 of it from the front. And when you're looking here, I'm just looking at the boat that's closest to us. So this boat here, okay? Just that one. Okay, so let me get rid of that blue line I just did. So go ahead and take a minute and see if you can kind of get a sense of that shape on the paper. I'm going to give you some tips. So with the 3/4 boat, look for the shape of the biggest part of the boat first. So that would be the biggest side of it coming towards you. Okay, so notice the angle of the boat. It doesn't have to be accurate. This boat is not, you're not doing a boat portrait for somebody, are you? So I'm going to do one that's wrong, and then I'm going to do one that's correct so that I can show you guys the difference. I'm going to do both and then share. Also, you can look at, if it helps you, to look at the boat in sections. So you've got like that bottom darker part, and then you've got the white part with the cabin. And then you have the top of that, and then you have that extra bit at the top. So to me, it's like a 4-story house that I'm looking at. So we're just going to take a few minutes. It's a little tricky, this one. The 3/4 view is the hardest, I think, to get at first. And then once you've got it, it becomes easier. And the interesting thing is that when you're looking at boats in a 3/4 view, you're seeing them not from the same exact angle every time. So you may see more or less of the front, more or less of the side each time. You guys are hard at work, I could tell. Don't worry about the railing. You don't even have to draw that. Just look at the main shape of the boat. If it helps you to draw the railing, that's great. But you can barely even see it. If I squint, I don't see it at all. I just see a gray underside of the hull. I see the white deck. I see the black window. You know, that's all I see. So. And I'll tell you that sketching more and more of these is going to improve, obviously, your ability to do them at any given time. The more boats you look at, the more boats you try to draw, and draw in a simplified way. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. I mean, that seems obvious, but we learn by doing things over and over again. Mindfully. Just like with painting. Okay, I see some of you guys still struggling. I think we've had enough time to paint, to draw that one. Maybe you've done it multiple times, right? How did you guys think you did? Harder than the last one or easier?
Harder.
Harder. Definitely. Yeah, there's more nuance to it. So I'm gonna go to my visualizer. Okay, so for me, the mistake on this one is to not look at it as two parts. So I look at it as two parts, almost like when you draw a house. So if you draw a house head on, super easy. But if you're drawing one from 3/4, you have to think, or even a cube or anything, you have to think about the sides, right? So here's the front and here's the side. And with this boat, there's no clear definition on the top one. This is the wrong one. There's no definition of where the front is and where the side is. Whereas here in the bottom one, you can see a clear front and a side, even though the boat is curved. So in the picture, this all looks like one shape. But in my brain, when I look at it, I try to say, where does the side sort of start? And it sort of starts here, okay? So it wasn't even a perfect drawing. I did it so quickly. But I'm looking at the front of it and this angle. And then I see the prow is actually here. And then I see that it swoops down and then back again. And then it kind of goes out. So I'm exaggerating the proportion right now. And then what I'm looking at is the angle of the top of the boat. So I see that it's fairly flat, whereas here I dipped it down. It's not really dipping till it gets to here. And then it's going up and down a little bit. Okay. Then once I've got that, I kind of ignore this part that's sticking out here because in my small boat language, I don't need that. And I'm just looking at the cabin, and the cabin has a front, and then the cabin has a side or a back. And then looking at the shape of those windows also helps me because they're so clearly contoured, right? So these are these windows, and even those I shorthand a little bit. And then you just kind of add the top in the same manner. Okay. So it's just looking at, and then we add detail. There's that. You can add some of these. You can darken some, whatever you like. Okay, I know there's a little line here going to the dock. So sorry, I didn't leave myself enough room here to draw. But we're just looking at the shape of that side. And really, it's two shapes. So you've got part of the front that's closer to, and then the 3/4. So it's really like that, and then you just refine it, right? Even if you did it in really rough geometric shapes, it's still the same idea. For those of you guys who remember that class where we worked kind of rough, and then we kind of softened the shape out and refined it. That's where we're getting to. Okay, I didn't make that long enough. Okay. So I didn't really pay attention to, there's a lot more of that there. Okay. So you guys giving it a try again now? Are you looking at it in a different way? Good. Okay, I'm going to put it back up so that you can see it again. So we're going to talk about what boats look like from the side. I think this is the easiest boat to do, and probably if you've ever stuck a boat on the water or on the beach, even like as I have, side on is the easiest because what you just have is you have a rectangle, whether it's thin or thick, tall or short. These are, I think, like canal boats that are out in the ocean. So they're super flat. They might be fishing boats. I don't know. It's like a screen grab, and I don't remember where I grabbed it from. To me, this is a boring painting because they're all sort of the same size and shape. But in terms of just a photo capture to capture the side, what you've just got is you've got a rectangle that is slightly curved and points out at the front and the back. So almost like a canoe, right? Without that much curvature. So go ahead and just take a minute to sketch a few of these. It's easier to do these. So long and short. Do you guys want to see them bigger? Is it too small?
Yeah,
Okay.
bigger.
Small.
Okay. Let me fix it in the PowerPoint and then come back.
I have a visitor, so I'm going to.
There we go. It doesn't like, it really hates it when I do that. There we go. That's a little bigger.
Well,
A little bigger there.
thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
And do you want us to sketch all of them? Little,
No,
or-
oh God, no. We'll be here all day. But
Okay,
do a couple
take
of
one,
them.
just pick one.
Pick one or two. I
Okay.
mean, they're pretty
Okay,
quick and easy. You've got a rectangle that points out at the bottom. Then you've got a cabin. And then on most of these, you have a mast. Look at where the mast comes from. Look at the height. You even have a couple here that are slightly angled, not the side, maybe a little bit 3/4, but not much. Yeah, if you drew all of these, Jerry, how long would it take, do you think?
I'd be there a couple days. I'd probably give up.
So I would say, depending on how
Oh.
you shorthand it, you could do it in 15 minutes.
Really?
Shorthand, because that's what we're here to do today. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you have about 30 boats. And I think in seconds you could draw them if you weren't too concerned about them all being perfect and you weren't drawing every little detail in there. I do. I think
I'm
you-
not. I'm
yeah,
not an
so
artist.
that's not what this is about. Just draw a few of them. These are nice and flat, but there are some that are a little bit less flat than others. So have fun with those. To me, what's interesting is the clump in the middle. So if I were going to redesign this, if someone said to me, I want you to paint the scene for me, I'm going to pay you, I would say, sure. And then I would redesign the scene because I really like whatever that harbor thing is in the background that's standing up, like a welcome to the harbor. And it looks like there's cargo ships or something back there. And then it looks like there's a cruise boat back there. And I think it says Monterey maybe in the back on that big red ship. But what interests me most is the clump in the middle. So I would keep all that background and I would do that clump of ships in the middle. And then I would simplify the number of ships that I, saw coming out. So we'll talk about how to do clumps of ships overlapping because we're just talking about boat shapes right now. But honestly, if you do a bunch of boats and none of them are overlapping, your scene is going to be boring. We've talked about that during the composition lessons, that the more overlapping shapes you have, the more it seems like a real life picture. Your eye is naturally, it's like when you watch a sitcom and one person talks and then there's a laugh track and then another person talks and then there's a laugh track. It's not real life. That's not how people talk. People don't wait for each other to fully talk and then pause for laughter, right? So it seems phony. It's the same thing with drawing and painting. In a composition, you have to have overlapping shapes because that's what happens in nature. And it looks more compelling. It's more interesting. Keeps your eye moving around the painting, and it just makes your painting seem less juvenile overall. Okay, so have we all had plenty of time, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's kind of forgiving when you look at them and you can see that the shape of the cabin can be almost anything.
Yeah,
It
exactly. Because it's not that important, right? As long as it,
Right.
for example, doesn't have a rounded top, as long as the top stays kind of flat, the sides are
Right.
either vertical or angled just a bit or stepped a bit. Yeah, that's a really great point, Diane. Thank you. Yeah, and some of you guys might not have even seen that there are cabins in these boats. But it isn't a canoe, so there is a little cabin in them. Some of them you could see more and some of them you could see less of, like the real shallow ones. Some of them you can't see the cabin. But what you've got here is you've got more or less a rectangle. I'll draw a rectangle. And then we bow it out in the front with a triangle and slightly lessen the back with a more shallow triangle. And then like Diane said, you've got a cabin somewhere in there. And then you've got a mast. Where does the mast start? It's different in every picture. I mean, in every boat, it looks slightly different, but usually the mast is somewhere in the middle, and it's usually you see it behind the cabin. And then some of them have, this is like the main, what do you call this? The boom, right? I think that's called the boom. Some of them have a little boom coming out this way, whether you wanted to add it or not.
Can we see your picture?
Oh, sorry, you can't see it? Where'd it go?
No, we have you.
Oh, it must have, I did it, but it didn't work, huh? Let's try again. Oh, stopped working. Give me a quick sec, I'll just reload it. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, there's
Okay,
the boom.
thank you. Thanks for pointing it out. Yeah, so some of these boats have, so I'm drawing the flat bottom. From the side, it's quite flat. Of course, some of it's under the water, and then you can bow at the front a little bit more or more, depending on the boat. And the back is less bowed out, right? So you start with a rectangle, and then you kind of add a triangle, and it has a little curve. Then you've got whatever shaped cabin, just like Diane said. And then you've got a mast that usually starts somewhere around here. And some of these have a boom. I know it's a boom because that's the one thing they tell me when I'm on the sailboat is to avoid the boom, because it swings when it's attached to your mainsail, and it swings and it can knock you right off the boat when it swings. You have to always know where the boom is. And then that would be the rigging line for the boat. You can also have them coming this way, and you could have all sorts of details here. It just depends how many you want to put in. Maybe there's a cabin window or two, and maybe there's a detail in the boat, but literally that's all you need to do a boat from the side. Some of them even less so. So if you've got a group of boats and you've got a couple main actors, you don't want detail in all of them. You want less detail as things get further away, right? The less detail you have, the more you're able to zoom in on the focus. So not everything is a focal point. So maybe your background is just a little bit of that. And then I'll refine those shapes. So even with all the boats sort of pointing in the same direction, you're starting to get a composition. Add in a boat from the front, and all of a sudden you've got something going on here in your picture. Some a little bit more interest happening here. It's getting easier.
Yes.
I like the faces. Okay.
So it almost sounds to me like you can almost make a half of a watermelon. You know, let go up and come down.
Show us,
And then
Jerry. Do
back
you mind
up.
showing us what you mean?
Oh, oh, I just I
Half a
don't know.
watermelon.
It's just sketching. You know, I'm not an
Oh,
artist. I
those
do
are
not
great,
draw.
Jerry. Look at you.
But you know, it's like I start with a half of a watermelon and then I can fill it in.
That's great. So whatever works for
It seems
you.
easier that way, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you see in shapes, what you shorthand it to is not going to be the same as what I do too. So
Sure, yeah.
whatever works for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
So let's take a look at some other boat shapes. Will it let me? Okay. Wait. Okay. So then can you guys see the back? 3/4 back?
oh,
So I picked a little
Yeah.
bit of a different shape. This is kind of
This
like
is Marcia.
Marcia.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, this.
Oh, I see your hand.
Before we go
Thank you,
on,
Marcia. Yep.
yeah, I raised my hand and everything, but before we go on, I'm having trouble with doing the mast, estimating how you said 3/4, that seems huge. You
The
said three
Uh-huh.
of the body. And I, try to do that with my pencil, it would be, off the paper. So I'm having
It
trouble
might
with
be
that.
off the paper. Yeah, I mean, it really might be. You've seen some tall ships. They're not all the same height. That was just that particular tall sailboat. So you might have seen even like a pirate ship or the tall ships in the harbor sometimes when they come in, their mast might be 3 to 4 times the size of their shorter hull. That's just one type of boat. That's one type of sailboat. Some others maybe are only twice as high or even maybe 1.5. Like those little sabots that you see, where people can rent them, you know, those small sailboats, those are like maybe just about 1.5 times. The way to do it is take a look at your picture or the boat in front of you, and you can either use your finger or you can use a pen or a pencil, and you look at the hull and you figure out where it is, and then you compare that to the mast, and you're going to see 1, 2, wow, that's much bigger. So using your pencil to do some sighting can be helpful. You can also exaggerate, right? So if your goal is to make those boats look elegant and tall and lovely sailboats blowing in the breeze, then you may want to make your mast even taller than it really is. A boater will say that's not right, but the average person looking at it will say, oh, it's so beautiful. They might not even realize why they think it's so elegant looking. On the flip side, you want to, maybe you've got a group of fishing boats and you want it to feel like the fog is coming down. It's very squatty. You may squish those boats, right? Yeah, good point. So try that next time and go off the page if you need to go off the page. Happens. Yeah. I
Can we
think
see
I
the
went
back
off.
of that boat?
Yeah, we'll go
Can
back
we
to that in just a sec. I almost went off the page on this guy. And I'm pretty sure I went off the page on this one. I just said, oh, not tall enough. And I just went up on both of these. So this is just practice. When you take time to go ahead and do your painting, you're going to sketch it first. You're going to plan it out better. And then you won't necessarily go off the page. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Marcia. Let's go back to the back of this boat. So this is like a little typical fishing trawler. And this one, we can see the engine, the motor on the back, which I think is kind of fun. So just like when we're sketching from the front, I find it's easy to think of this in terms of two-sided. Like think of it as a cube, and we've got the side that's more facing you and the side that's facing more to the back on this rather than the front. So for some of you guys, it might be helpful to sketch the cabin on this one first. Again, don't think too much about accuracy. Just think about what shapes you're seeing. A lot of the time, you can't even look, like it's very hard to see what you're looking at because that part of the boat might be in shade. So it's like, what am I even looking at? What does the bottom of that motor look like? It's all just black, just shorthand it. If you can't see it, then just in your painting, it wouldn't be reasonable to be able to see it properly. There's little fun windows. They're kind of rounded at the edges. Really fun. What's really fun about this is this is a deep sea fishing boat. So those fishing poles, those tall fishing poles at the top are really fun. So then I would count them too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are just lines. A lot of stuff going on this little tiny boat. So what's nice on this picture here is all the reflections in the water. Aren't those great? We haven't really talked about that yet, but there are some really fun reflections happening here. I'm trying this one a couple times because I think I got the fun part of the proportions. I messed it up. And sometimes that happens. So you go to put in the window or the door and you're like, oh, I didn't make that tall enough. What do you think? You want another minute? Thank you for the tips coming through, by the way. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Hillary, how are you doing? You look like you are concentrating so hard.
Yeah, I'm trying it again. I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm not feeling well really is way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope this takes your mind off it a little bit.
Yeah. No, it is definitely.
All right. How about we take another 30
Go
seconds?
ahead. I'm okay, Anne. Really. I'm
Okay.
trying this.
Minnie, how are you doing, Minnie?
I have a hard time with the side perspective, you know.
For
Um,
everything or just with the both?
Probably with everything. I mean,
Because they go
I'm
together.
looking at,
Yeah.
I mean, look, okay, if you look at that, it's like, what
I'm going to
it's like
hold you up so that we can all
there's
see.
no perspective on to the side. The windows looks like it's all stacked straight up and down.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. But still, I can tell what it is 100%. Right? So
Yeah, I mean, I could do better the next time, I think.
yeah, I think so. I think that perspective is a tool that is super useful to study and to learn. And I'm not talking about really complicated 3-point perspective. I'm talking about simple 1 and 2-point perspective is very helpful. There are a lot of classes I can recommend on it, but also if you don't understand perspective or you don't go through the process of, the traditional way of learning perspective or utilizing it, another way to do it would be just to cite things with a pencil. So again, you can cite the lines on the bottom. You look at, I'll just take the other 3/4 one that I did. You look at the line and you see that it's going at this angle. So for me, this is like a 45-degree angle, right? If I had drawn it at this angle, it would look funky. So it's at this angle, then look at the picture. So generally you're gonna have 45 then going this way too. Okay. And then as you get closer to horizon and vanishing point, your angles change, right? It's almost like a clock. So some people find it easier to use degrees. Other people can look at and say, this is pointing at, this is 10 o'clock, whatever works for you. But if you don't want to use perspective or really just don't want to learn it, just learn to see it in terms of an angle, however you use that angle, whether it's a clock, it's just citing with the pencil, it's on a scale of 360 degrees. So when you're looking at all of those lines, Minnie, and you can do it now, even after you've drawn something, you can look at a picture and you can compare it and you could say, did I get that angle is it the same as the photo? So let's say the photo is here. This is the angle in the photo. Did I get that angle right? And if not,
Okay,
you adjust it. And you do that for all of your lines. So the fewer the lines you use, the easier it is to correct them, right? If you just say, I'm going to draw the outside of this boat without the inside line, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say, lines. Once you start adding interior lines, then you've got this line, okay? But still, it starts to make sense to you, and then you start to be able to see it, and there becomes a muscle memory where when you draw things from a 3/4 view, you know that this angle on the other side of that building, boat, cube, whatever it is you're drawing, this angle has to be matched by another angle that looks like this, okay? So, and that's something you learn when you're going through a perspective course also. So for example, on drawingacademy.com, they have so many great lessons on perspective, and I can include some links in the email that will help you, but don't worry too much. I mean, for example, your boat mini still looks like a 3/4 view of a fishing boat. We know exactly what it is. But if your goal is to make it look more like the picture, then just measure an eyeball and you'll get there. And then maybe in the future, you guys might take a class on that. I don't really teach perspective drawing. It's not my forte. I can do it, but I don't really teach it very well. So I can give you guys some tips on who to go to. So
And also, thank you.
yeah, Hillary.
So sometimes I've been watching like where they put a dot and like the string and they move it and show, and so that I've been using like that idea. Like they put the flower fields picture we did where
Yes.
it was like the dot and then well I'm
Yeah,
just,
so what Hillary is
so that's
talking
how
about.
I take like if you put the dot in the corner of that little boat, the one
This is what
side is
Hillary's
kind of
talking about, is 2-point perspective. So when you have the boat here, and then you're measuring towards the horizon, right? And you're measuring with dots, and then this is the end
Yeah.
of the boat. It's very hard to draw sitting up, but then you have, this is your boat, and then you just round out the edges, correct?
kind of yeah. That's why I was thinking on the last boat. Like I just
Yeah.
figured he was going more this way, not straight across or not up,
Correct. Yeah.
like my dot was here
Yeah.
and then I went through that and then that, I don't know.
And your top boat's really good too, by the way.
Okay. So I'm more sketchy. Like I was like,
That's okay.
not sketchy, but I tend to like, I don't know how to explain it more, I adjust so much. I end up with a lot of lines.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that.
Paint this because there's too much pencil on it.
Yeah,
so,
so that's fine though, Hillary, because when you're sketching, everybody has a different way of doing things. So if you are using like loose and then you're refining it, that's great.
Mhm.
When it comes to transferring that to watercolor paper, that can be difficult because if you're painting in light colors, then you've got a lot of graphite showing through.
Right.
So you either
So
have to switch to a harder pencil, like an H pencil versus a B,
Okay.
or an HB, or you have to erase some of those incorrect lines at the end, or you just redraw it. And now that
Right.
you've drawn it once correctly, you could either trace it and transfer it or redraw it. Yeah.
That makes sense. But that's how I started to do like you were just doing. I started watching what you were doing. I had just one line. Like
I
just
mean, I
drawing.
do it too. It's just maybe it's less obvious because I'm using this dark, but I go over things too, so you can kind of see I've gone over and corrected. But everyone has a different method, but there's nothing wrong with
But
that
then
at all.
you're right. Putting the tracing paper on top and then tracing your final. That would
So
make sense.
yeah, so I'm gonna get to the other hands in just a minute. So quite often I do my sketches here. So I'll show you right now. I'll show you one. I do my sketches here. Okay. I will draw it how I want it, and I'll do it multiple times. I am sure I've got multiples of, I got all my boats in here. But I know I have another one of that scene. Here we go. I will draw this multiple times so this one was too crowded with boats, so I did it again. And then what I end up doing and I'm gonna just grab it, is that I then end up tracing and transferring or redrawing onto the watercolor paper, and then I'll paint it.
Okay.
Because
That makes
for me, getting the composition correct, or the way I want it on a paper is going to take too much the way that I draw it, it's so sketchy. I mean, look at that. That's a hot mess. That I couldn't possibly do that on a watercolor paper because I don't use a lot of darks typically. So yeah, so there are different ways to go about that. Or you can, if you like to use a lot of graphite, you can just erase it off the watercolor paper. But I have a
So
problem.
you use an H, is it HB? Is that the pencil you?
When I draw, I prefer to use an HB. However, if I'm drawing directly on the watercolor paper, I do not use an HB. I use an H. I use like a 4H. So it'll be harder, which means it's fainter, and it will also erase more easily.
Okay.
There's just less soft, dark material in it. Okay, so I've got, Diane's got a question, and then Vicky. So Diane, I'm gonna spot you.
Okay, I have I can't imagine I'd ever paint a boat in great detail, but one thing that keeps throwing me off is the motor, because mine ends up looking like a mushroom just stuck on the back of the boat.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it.
Because you
And then
don't know what it
makes
actually
come off.
looks like. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the same as the boat until you get to know the boat and how to draw its shape, its observation. Then it's the same thing with all the other elements. So with the motor, like what could be helpful for me is if you really want to draw it up close and you want that motor to be correct versus it's just a supporting actor, it's, you know,
Right.
it's just a dark mark on it. Then
Okay.
I Google the thing. If I don't know what something looks like and it's far away and I really don't know how to shorthand it, or if it's up close and it's in a shadow and I don't know what it looks like, I Google it. I will literally Google like offboard motor. And then I start getting to know what it looks like. I start sketching it. And then when it comes time to draw it in the painting, then I know
Right.
exactly what it looks like. And I know the shape I can shorthand. Is it rounded at
Okay.
the edge? Is it squared? What's the proportion? And sometimes
Is it up
there's
and down,
multiple.
or is it tilted? Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's a
Okay.
great question.
And
Thanks.
I just have a question. Are you going to get to painting background behind this?
Yes, absolutely. We're
Good,
going to
okay.
paint in just a little bit. Yeah. Because we did some drawing first, and I want to say hi to Esther. Thank you for joining. So we're doing sketching boats from different angles and learning what they look like so that when it comes to painting them, things get easier. So, and then I think, Vicky, did you have your hand up, Vicky?
I do have my hand up.
I'm coming to you.
Hi,
All right.
2 questions. I'm having trouble doing the deck. And then you didn't actually go over you drawing this fishing boat. Can you do that?
Yes, for sure. So I'll do them both on camera. How's that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me just change the screen. Okay, so we didn't go over me drawing this boat. Okay. So what I did is I started actually with the cabin on this one because the cabin seemed to me more significant and also like just easier to start with. So I see it as a big square, almost a square, a rectangle. And then what I did is I removed it. So when you're looking at just a little bit higher than the horizon, just above horizon or right at horizon, you're not going to see a lot of deck. Here's the deck right here. You won't see that much of it. Flat on, you won't see any of it. So I almost like don't worry about it. I almost think of it as a negative space. I don't know if that helps you, but that's what I do. Now I'm drawing from my drawing, which isn't very helpful. So I'm going to go back to the picture. So I'm looking at this and I see my angle is off. So I'm going to fix the angle. And so it's very rough for me. If you want to draw the deck a little bit, you just kind of have to flatten out your picture plane just a little bit and you almost have to wrap it around. Okay. So then I'm adding the rest. And when I add the windows, etc., I actually might, and then so the deck is in here, but it's almost like you don't see it, right? I hope that helps, Vicky. I'm not sure. And then here I could see, here is my I can center this door. It's quite narrow. And then I have these windows here. There's another window here that actually, it's a wraparound window, so it comes right to the front. There's stuff inside here, so you can make it as dark as light as you want. This is going to be in shadow, which is quite interesting to me. All this is shadow. And then it's just all details, like which details do I want to include? There's a motor here. So here's the shape of the motor. And then this is just shadow. I don't know what's going on here, so I'm just gonna fake it. And then I just went, oh, there's 5 of these guys, and I just flip them up here. And then put a little detail on them. So I'm not, again, not like aiming to do a portrait of a boat in this picture. In this picture, I'm just aiming to do a boat as a supporting character. But in this picture alone, this really is a beautiful composition. I guess it's a little boring, but this could be a portrait of a boat. So if it is, you may want to draw it more thoroughly and add a lot more detail. Okay. So again, just checking the angles here, and then I can refine things. Like you can see that I've done some work trying to refine this shape. It's hard to do when you're working in pen. Does that help, Vicky? Does that answer a question or two?
Yes.
Okay. So the main thing about
This
the
is-
deck is I don't worry about it so much.
This is Marcia again. Sometimes someone says something my whole life. I'm 76 years old. I've listened to people talk about 45 degrees and 9. I've never understood that. You said the clock and everything has changed. All of a sudden, I get it. Using a clock works for me. I've never understood degree. I did horrible in algebra.
Yeah, so the clock is just degrees, right? So these are 90 quadrants, right? Here's your 12, 6. Where are we? 3 and 9. And then when you split them in half, they become 45s. So you could say 10, 11, right? 7, 8. So yeah, it's the same thing. Whatever works for you. I'm glad that that's helpful to you. I'm glad you had a light bulb moment. That's great. Any other questions? All right, let's move on then. Let's do some more boats. So we've got boats from the majority of the angles. We've got the back of the boat. It's kind of boring in a painting. Every once in a while, you want the back of the boat though. So you guys want to sketch it? And then we'll do some painting. Okay, go for it. The back of the boat is probably easier even than the front of the boat. What you want to look for again is shape. What's curved? What's flat? This back of this boat is very flat because this is a boat that's meant to be sitting on or jumping off the back. So this back is low and flat and it has a railing, which is pretty cool. But then the cabin of the boat, which it isn't, or the deck, I should say, that's got a shape to it. So go ahead and pay attention to that shape. There's a bit of a weird foreshortening thing going on in this picture. Which might confuse some of you guys, but I'll just say simplify it as much as possible. So for those of you guys who are working really hard to get those staircases in, you don't even like really need them. Far away, you won't see that. If you want to put them, go right ahead. But I think they just confuse things a bit in the long run. But you can put as much detail or as little detail in there as you want. Think about the proportion again. So When I first drew it, I think I made this boat a little too short. It's like the back of a car. Do you guys ever paint cars? I don't do a lesson on cars, but Lyron Yankowski paints a lot of cars if you're interested in learning how to do cars. It's the same as boats. It's just a shape with windows and details. That's all it is. And wheels.
Well, the thing that's the hardest here is that roof on the boat. Like mine looks like a big flap.
Yeah,
Doesn't look
I
like a
agree. So I'm just ignoring that that is a weird perspective and I'm just drawing it flat. Because it's an
Yeah.
odd perspective. So again, when you see
Right.
something, you can, if you've done it other times, you're gonna know, I don't need to take it at face value. I can change it. Likewise, I just made some weird squiggle shapes for the stairwells. Like, I mean, if I do this boat further away in a painting, I wouldn't even put them there. So, and I added some radar at the top, which I don't know if it's there or not there, but I just really simplify. I mean, I could simplify this even more. So
The boats have them.
yeah, all the boats have them. Need to be able to communicate. So much of that I didn't put there. For me, it's just, I see a shape and a dark, a shape and a light, a shape and a dark, a shape and a light with some details. I put a few little dots on there, but I mean, there's a lot of stripes going on. There's a lot of metal going on that boat. If I squint, I don't see that. So here, we'll stop that share. So anybody come up with something like this?
Mine looks like RD2.
R2D2? Okay. So
I
too
don't
many
know.
lines, is that what you mean?
Too much Star Wars this weekend.
Is there anyone
It
who
does
wants to
kind of
share?
look like a Star Wars boat,
Could you
Sherry.
pull the boat up again?
Yeah,
please?
for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Give you guys another minute. We want to get to the painting part. We have about 45 minutes. So this is the end of our boat views. We didn't do overhead. I feel like, to me, I'll just show you so quick, but boats from overhead, I feel like are so easy. I'll just show you one that I've done, but it's rare that we're doing overhead. Maybe you're standing at the top of a hill and looking down at the harbor. I just see oblong shapes when I do that. I think I've got one in here somewhere. Oh, I know where I had it. It's not here. It's in the beginning of the PowerPoint, so I'll show you. All right, you guys. All right. Vicky, it's going away. Okay, so let me go back
Okay.
to, yeah. So the more, just to reiterate, the more you practice these, the easier it gets. Just draw a lot. Just bring your little sketchbook with you the next time you're going to be anywhere near a boat. So here's another back of the boat. So simple. It's got a tiny bit of 3/4 in it to give it a little more interest. From above, see the shape? It's like an arrowhead almost. Just a little shape with a tiny little detail for a dark for the well of the boat. And so you've got the light detail for the cabin, the dark for what's lower, and then you might have a mast or two. So from above, it's super easy. I painted a couple of those recently. So, okay. So let's go back. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint for a second. So we're going to have another sketch moment where we sketch as many of the boats in the picture as we can in 5 minutes. So we're just going to take 5 minutes and just sketch away. And the goal is quantity more than quality, okay? So here it is big. I'm setting the timer. You don't have to sketch them in the scene. You know what I mean? You don't have to make it a scene. Just grab them and put them on the paper, okay? So I'm gonna do it with you. So I'm setting my 5-minute timer. Okay. So this is just, I'll talk through it. This is a real scene of when we were out in Catalina one day. I don't remember which day it was, but you've got boats from all directions. Maybe not the back in this one. I remember we're shorthanding boats. Think darks and lights. And try to get as many as you can. So this is like our little quick draw competition here. See how everybody does. If you do one and you don't like how it comes out, don't fuss it. Just move to the next one, please. Really. Drew it too long, too short. You can either draw it again or just move to the next one. And the idea is that at the end of this, you're going to see that it really does look like a boat scene, whether you think you're good at this or not. You've already gotten better. If you want, you can put a little bit of reflection under some of the boats. There's a lot of 3/4 here. So I think the most challenging one. Put those little buoys in if you want. Those are always fun. And you've got a variety of boats here, but they are mostly like racing boats and pleasure yachts. Got a little inflatable in the front, which is kind of cute. Something we didn't really talk about. So you just follow the same rules. Got a little outboard motor on it, which is cute. And if you want to overlap some of them and try to draw some that like those smaller ones that are in the back, you want to try to get the, you know, the feeling of a scene, you could do that. There's also, what do you call those boats? See that yellow one? What's that one called again? I know the word and I just forgot. Got like this
Submarine or catamaran or something like that.
catamaran. Yeah, it's a
I don't know what that is. I thought it was a rescue.
Unreal.
Oh, I see it.
yeah.
Back hurts.
And can you see, like, as the boats get further and further away, the shapes, there's just more and more shorthanded. There's no way anyone can see the deep. I mean, I just can't believe that anybody would see the detail on these. I can't see it. We didn't talk about, but I'll talk about it now, is that hulls can be different colors, right? Some of these hulls are dark, others are light. Some of them are striped, like light and dark. There's one of them that's got turquoise on it over there. Some have more cabin windows than others. I think depending on the type of boat. See, that's our 5 minutes already, you guys. So small, right? Oh, we stop. Okay, so count the number of boats that you drew. Even if they didn't come out well, count them. Anyone get 14?
How many? 14?
I mean,
I
you're
barely
doing
got 4 and they don't even look like boats.
anyone
And
get
you do 14.
anyone
You do
get 10? 8?
I did 7.
7.
got-
Oh, good
Hooray.
for you, Hillary.
Good for you,
I
Hillary.
got 13.
13, Minnie? Awesome.
Okay.
Would either of you like to share?
I don't care. You
All
know
right.
me.
Let me spot. Anyone who wants to share, hold it up.
Perfect. Look at
That's
that.
awesome, Hillary.
That's awesome.
You've got a little
Yeah,
scene
awesome.
going there. Okay, I'm coming to Minnie.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
spot you. You can hold it up or not. It's up to you. Wow, Minnie, that's amazing. Think you
I-
conquered your fear of boats because that's really good. Can you hold yours up again for just a second, Minnie? I want to show
Mhm.
everybody something.
Yeah, so I put her on the big screen.
Look at your foreground boats. They are
Ah, I
literally
love
just
that.
a swinging line and a vertical, some of those boats.
Yeah.
But they totally read as boats.
And then
Yeah.
in the harbor. It's nice. Like
Really
how they
nice.
all bob around.
Something
very
that's
nice.
really interesting too, Minnie, hold it up one more time. Sorry to embarrass you. Hold it up one more time for us. That something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is focus and center of interest in a painting. And we often think about atmospheric perspective, meaning that the boats that are further away have less detail. But your boats can have less detail in the foreground too if they're not in your center of interest. And that is very interesting to me, Minnie, because you've done that in some of your boats in the foreground. I don't know if you were thinking about it, if it's intuitive, or if you were running out of time and you just, checked a couple more boats in there. By the way, I like that you show some head on as well. But like
Thank you.
what something can do for you is that you can, sorry, I'm trying to spot this, is that you can zoom your center of interest in purely by using the level of detail. So I didn't do it here, but if I had done some more short-handed boats out here and I had zoomed in and done more focused, more details here, then your eye, the viewer's eye, would be drawn right here. If I had done short-handed boats out here, very sketchy, and then more detailed boats over here, your eye will naturally be drawn here. For me, I did them in the background, but you don't have to. You can just add more detail where you want the viewer to look, right? So just something to point out. So did anyone get 8, 7, 6? 6, Diane, good. 5, anyone get 5? A boat a minute? 4? Okay.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and a couple circles.
Do you want to share, Jerry?
Well, I'm not very good at it, but
That's
I'll
okay.
just share.
Sorry, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good. You got some overhead shots where you can see into the
Yeah,
deck
hard
of the
to
boat,
see.
which is
I-
kind of neat.
Hard to see and with the glass, even with the glasses, I got too much glare in here or something.
You did really
Anyway,
well.
you guys all put little bubbles and stuff around them, but
So that's
anyway,
something that
well-
you can add to make things look like a scene really quickly. So if you're out and you're
Yeah.
sketching, you just draw like right here. Oh, let me unspot you. You just
Yeah.
add some reflections. My timer thinks it wants to keep going. You add a few reflections, you add some moorings. You don't have to do it for every single one, but all of a sudden you add a horizon, you can add a few clouds. All of a sudden you've got a scene
picture.
that you can
Yeah.
work with, right? And be inspired by, right? You can add a couple details on the boat, a couple more windows, right? You can add some sort of headlands in the background. All of a sudden you have a scene going, right? So, and that just makes you feel more confident with things, just adding in those little details, and it doesn't look like your boats are floating, for example. So that was just 5 minutes worth of practice, and you guys did really well. I'm impressed. Imagine you're out there for an hour, you know, or you're out there for 30 minutes a couple days a week. So like, for example, when we went to Catalina, I don't mean to keep harping on that, but we had 3 full days, many of which were spent at the harbors. We were at a location called 2 Harbors. So we're sketching boats over and over and over and over again. It's very easy to get good at it very quickly, because that was just 5 minutes, you guys, right? So don't be intimidated. Just practice whenever you get the chance. I'm going to give you guys some pro tips, and we're going to paint. Okay, so we just very quickly talked about shadows and reflections. Okay, remember to add some of them. The boats aren't levitating, they're sitting in water, and part of them are underwater. So that shadow that you see is actually the boat underwater, but you can also do shadows on the hull. So the shadows that you see here in brown on the hulls are popping out the whites on the deck and showing you where the light goes in your scene, right? And then your reflections are also because your boat is sitting on the water and they're reflecting back. When I do boats often, I just use negative painting, or you can reserve your whites ahead of the time. To me, reserving your whites and using negative painting are the same thing, because I'm reserving the white in my brain, not with a masking fluid or something. I'm just doing it in my brain, and I'm going to paint around those things. So we'll do that in just a minute, because it's really fun. And then remember just to simplify things and get rid of most of the details. You don't need to see all that rigging. You don't need, I mean, it just becomes a hot mess. There are some people who can do it really well, and I will show you right now. I'll just show you one. So this is David Taylor, and I love his boat paintings. He's got a lot of boat paintings in this book. I bought this book for $6. It's like the best college course I ever took. So he's got a lot of detail, and there's a lot of boats cram-a-jam, and you really get that great feeling of it being a crowded harbor. But I make you bet he still took at least half of the details out, even with all those thin riggings are there, okay? Another common mistake people make is they use the wrong brush to do the riggings. They use the same brush, and it ends up fat, and it ends up so distracting. Use your thinnest brush, or use a white gel pen or something to do all that rigging, okay? So just wanted to share that with you, because he's one of my favorites, and you'll learn a lot from him, as I have. Okay. So can you guys see in this painting that I literally just painted the background? And then I left the white of the paper, and then I painted in the details. So we're going to do that in just a bit. Okay. For reflections, this is a real pro tip. If the hull of the boat is white, the reflection in the water will be darker than the hull of the boat. Look at this right here. White boat, dark reflection. See that? If your hull is dark, which there aren't here, but you can see it here. If the object is dark, somebody has talk in the background, if you can please mute, then the reflection will be lighter than the hull. So you can kind of see it here. Imagine this is a dark hull of a boat. It's not, it's just the dock. But see the darkness, the reflection is lighter. So you flip it, okay? Something.
Is that Peter's Landing?
Yeah.
Marina Block, yeah.
I had my hair cut and lunch there the other day.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we'll do some negative painting. I'll show you some examples. So when I'm using negative painting, and you, Michelle, yes. Michelle's got a question. Michelle? You're on mute, Michelle. Maybe you put your hand up by accident. If you get unmuted and you still have a question, then go ahead and just shout it out. Okay. So what I do is I sketch the boats lightly, quite often, and then I will sketch the masts and if there's any sales, I'll sketch them in. So just like this artist has, you could see the pencil lines. This is one of my favorite sketchbook artists
Stop it.
on Instagram.
Sorry.
That's okay. So I will do these sketches lightly, and then I either will add masking fluid. Very rarely. I will usually just carve around the shapes with my paint. So I basically just avoid painting the areas that I've sketched. And when I do that, sometimes what I'll do is I'll wet the big areas. So I might wet these big areas right here. I'll show you in annotation, because we're going to do this in just a bit. I might wet up to here. And so I'll get some of these big shapes in and wet. But then as I come closer, I'll just drag my paint into the dry area so I can get a crisp shape. Anybody ever do that? Okay, so I'll show you guys how I do that in just a little bit. Get rid of that annotation. Oop. I'll show you how somebody else did it in just a bit. Can you guys see the shrimp boat painting?
Yes.
So this is a lot less crisp than the last one we just looked at, but done the same way, where the white of the boat is just the white of the paper. And the background was painted in, and then the details on the boat were added after. One of my favorite paintings. You can also do positive paintings of boat, in which case these are really brightly colored boats. It makes so much sense to leave the background. This is either a very light tint of a background or it's the white of the paper. I can't tell. It's just a quick sketch. But you don't have to paint your boats in negative. You don't need to. It's just that a lot of boats are white. The majority of them are white, and so it's easy to. But when you have colorful boats, you just keep the background more neutral, and you can have fun with positive painting. Okay. I don't know what happened to this annotation, sorry. Okay. I think I have some more drawings here. I don't know why. I wanted to show you guys this one too, because it's one of my favorite. If you guys aren't familiar with the California Watercolor Society, go online and they have a search function. You can type in anything. You can type in the name of the artist. You can type in the word boat, and this is what you're going to get. So again, these boats were all done with just the white of the painting or a very lightly tinted background. Likewise, the water was left white, and then the details were added, the reflections were added, and so forth. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
Not all boats
Wow.
have to be sailboats either. These are obviously our fishing boats.
And the seagulls. The
Oh, I
seagulls in that
know.
one.
Aren't they great?
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're coming after all the bait.
Perfect.
Probably.
But how he did it gray but in white in front of the building.
Yeah,
I
you
love
guys
that
noticed that?
contrast.
Yeah, notice
It's
that.
fantastic.
Yeah, because the way to make a compelling painting in the simplest way is a dark contrasted with a light, contrasted with a dark, contrasted with a light. You can have a dark contrasted with a medium as long as it's lighter. Dark, light, light, dark, light, dark. Or think lighter, darker is probably a better way. Yeah, it's just brilliant. This guy, Ralph, he is a master. So anyway, so we've got a couple of options for ourselves. We have, now it's stuck for a second, so I'll just talk to you. So we've got
Let's
about
find
30
it.
minutes. 30 minutes.
Simple one, please. Simple.
Yeah, let's choose a simpler one. It's just not wanting to click. Okay. So we could try to zoom in on some of those boats there, or we could try to paint one of these paintings, or we could go back and we can do one of these paintings. So you tell me, do you guys want to try to do like multiples or single? Esther, can't hear you. I don't know if you, because I could see you pointing. Maybe you were just thinking.
I vote for the one on the right.
Yeah, I really like that one.
This
Yeah.
one? Yeah, it is front
Yeah.
and center. Okay, great. let's do this one. Okay, so we'll take a few minutes to sketch it. Do
Are
you
you
guys
doing it on
want to
big
see?
paper or?
Yeah, I'm gonna use, like, this is what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use, you can see me in the small window. I'm gonna use, just a watercolor sketchbook. Do you guys want to see my paper as I do it? Yes, very good. Anybody want to? Or do you prefer to? Because we can screen grab this and then you can see what I do. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think that's the best for me.
Okay.
I don't know how
So
to
what
do
that
a
means
screen
is you
grab.
either keep this open in another window or you screen grab it or do what I'm doing. You take your phone and take a picture of it. And then that picture is what you're going to use. And then you'll be able to see me do it also on the big window, just like when we do a happy hour. So I'll give everybody a minute to do a little screen grab of that. And I'm going to switch to my pencil. So this is an HB. I'm going to see if I have, sometimes I use colored pencil too. So I could use like a white. I think this one is good. Yeah, this is a harder pencil. So again, I don't want as much graphite. When I just sketch for the pure joy of sketching, I love to use a softer pencil. But when I'm sketching and I'm going to be watercoloring over it, I don't want a lot of carbon on the paper and I don't want a lot of smudging. And because I often paint with light colors. I'm going bolder lately though, but I like light, luminous, happy watercolors. I'm not a moody watercolor person generally. So I switched to this
Hi, sweetie.
harder
Haven't come
pencil,
yet.
which doesn't give you as much
Where am I?
graphite on the paper. Okay. So has everybody grabbed that? Had a chance? Okay. I'm seeing thumbs up. All right. So then I'm just going to share my process. By the way, this is a new sketchbook. So I often do negative painting. This is negative painting. This is done with negative painting. Negative painting means you paint the main subject last. This is positive painting. This is my nephew, everyone, by the way. Sammy.
Look at him.
It actually came out good. It looks like him. And then you remember we did this subject. This was a practice. So anyway, I've just got this little sketchbook here and I'll put my picture here. So again, it was the simplest of sketches. I'm going to just sketch it again. Curve the hull. Now I know you guys might not be able to see this very well, but I'll hold it up. So curved hull, slightly bowed out front. So it's not flat, coming forward. And then we've got, just checking my angles. They're okay. This has a slightly 3/4-y thing going on right there. Okay. So then we've got something here. And then the main part of the cabin here. I like this. I think it's already compelling. Let me measure it and make sure I can get these windows in. Good, I can. Maybe I made that one too big. I'll fix it. And then there's, you know, various bits and bobs that are going on up here. If you like them, you want to put them there. They're kind of cute. They're just fishing things, I guess. And then we've got this buoy line going in the water, and the actual buoy is here. And then we've got this background here. And if you want to draw in some other boats in the background, you can. I'm just going to make them literally just shapes. Okay. They're just shapes. I don't want them to be like main characters in any way. So There's a lot going on back here. And then if you want to remember, you can draw some of the reflections in. So I think that's enough. Sorry about my head. Okay. So I've drawn it quite big so I could showcase it, but it's a pretty big subject for the size of the little paper here. Okay. So then I'm gonna pick some colors for my background, which I like the teal. I'm gonna keep it simple. I like the teal. I'm gonna go pretty dark with my background. So I'm gonna use like, I know I don't show my paint, but I'm gonna use teal and I don't know, indigo maybe. Maybe with like a little bit of green in there. That's pretty. Okay. So with the negative painting, you can wet your paper. And if you wet it, you'll get some looseness, but I put some blue in my water so you can see. Okay. So I'm going to wet it, but I won't wet right up to the edge of the boat because that can be a little bit tricky because it will start bleeding. And if you want a crisp edge for your negative shape, it's not the best idea. So I'll wet right up to it, but I'll leave just a little bit out right there. There we go. So you can see I can kind of get a soft background, but and then I'm just going to keep going with it. Soft background, but a crisp edge. So it's not super dark yet because there are some lights in here too. And especially with the lights in the boat. So I can kind of lift some of that out. So I'm really just creating the background right now. Maybe I'll put some buff in there. Now you guys can either be watching or painting along. Hope some of you are painting along. So this is the part where it gets tricky when it comes to negative, right? It's like if this whole paper is wet, you're not going to be able to get that little crisp negative without masking it out. Then the rest of it I can kind of go quickly on. Turning my paper because I don't paint very well sideways, as many of you guys know. I know the painting's sideways, but my hand isn't. So now that this is kind of like wet, I did get some splotches in here. You start to see the shape of the boat taking place, right? It's kind of fun. There also happens to be some blues back here because these are not blue because there's boats in here. But if you want to just, otherwise the top has to be all dark. So I'm just going to put the rest of some of that water in here. And then I can just start changing the colors up in here just a little bit. But I'm leaving a little bit of space for these bits and bobs that I talked about that are on the top of this boat. And then I'm also, while I'm doing it, I'm sort of creating the negative shapes of some of the boats that are in the background. And then I just start to create a little more visual interest. It's real dark up here on the top of the picture, so. I'll balance those darks because it looks super dark. Like why would she do that? But I'll balance that with darks below in the boat itself. So it doesn't worry me. The other thing too is the windows of the boat. So you can see through those windows. So put them in. Go ahead and put them in. I'm gonna kind of line them up. Same. Oh, when you see my head, if that gets in the way, just tell me next time. I noticed I did that. So here we change the color of the window. Doesn't need to be, everything doesn't need to be the same. Change it up a bit. This boat's starting to come to life. Just a little bit. Looks funny now, but it's a trust the process kind of thing. So this is drying. What can we do while things are drying? This is
Fix
arches
my
paper, so I know I can't do very much. Anybody have any questions?
I
So-
have
Yeah.
a comment. This is Marcia.
Yeah.
Is I think that when I started, I didn't center my windows right. And so of course they're different, the wrong sizes and
Mine are
you know,
too.
maybe
That's okay.
mine, the placement is wrong is what I'm saying. I needed to do my cabin rectangle looking at the center of the you know, it's
hall.
okay. It's
Yeah.
just, it's,
That's a
yeah,
good
it's
point.
just, I recognized a mistake, which, you know, I like to say one of the joys of watercolor is learning how to correct your mistakes.
Yes, true. It is one of the joys, but it's also can be frustrating if you've started painting already, right? And you're like, oh, why didn't I notice that before? So when you're going real quickly like we are now, it's pretty easy to make that kind of mistake. But don't worry about it. It's not a boat portrait. No one's gonna know but you. So
Well, now that I opened my mouth, everybody knows I made the mistake.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So you don't tell anyone next time and nobody will know. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of color to
And you're not the only one.
yeah. What I should have done, my mistake was I should have gotten rid of a little bit of the pencil here in the white when I was correcting things. Because honestly, that pencil will show through some of the light colors. And if you don't want it, that could be frustrating. So I'm going to start to try to fill in some of this with positive painting now. So I'm not using that many colors. I'm kind of just using the same colors throughout. And also don't worry if you screw up like the white, if you didn't get to reserve that white, because you can always add it back in later with either like a white gel pen or a Posca pen, gouache, that kind of thing. I like some bleeds in my painting, so I'm making sure I get some of those. And then I go up and kind of work on some of those details a little. There's a little detail in here, here. And I'm just shorthanding some of these things because I don't really know what I'm looking at either. They're just little bits and bobs that are here. Maybe I'll switch to a finer brush point now. Some of these can be positively painted. So onto the background, I can paint what are some brown and look like kind of silvery sort of details up here. Just being careful not to make them too opaque because I don't want them to look like they're like little mustaches, you know, that are stuck on. They have to look natural to a degree anyway. So what are these little details I'm looking at? I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it matters. Starting to come together. The light is very bright, so it's actually my light. So my colors are actually a lot more saturated than it seems at first glance. So they're going to dry. So as they dry, they're going to dry lighter. That's okay because we're painting from dark to light in a big sense today. I'm going to start to put in some of the positive details on these boats back here too, because I do want them to look like boats, but just in a real, you know, general sense that they look like boats. So I'm putting some roofs on them. I'm going to throw some windows in some of them. I'm not going to paint exactly what I see there. I'm just using it as an inspiration, and I hope that you guys will too. You can create it, you know, this painting however you want it. You don't have to always go, oh, I didn't paint that boat exactly like I thought. Well, that's okay. When there's so much going on anyway. This one's nice and dark over here, which is kind of fun. And start to put in some of these reflections and darker moments in here. It's much darker here in the front of the boat. It's up to you how much you want to do with all these reflections. They're beautiful though. I try to vary the color up a little bit. I'm gonna try to refine things over here a little bit. Got a little bit of a dark window or something here, like a latch. Oh, that came out too dark. And a little too brown. That's okay. Just get rid of it. Now I'm gonna have to wait for it to dry again. So whatever details you like, you go ahead and paint them. If you don't like that detail, you don't have to paint it. If it's just, maybe it's not interesting to you, you don't have to paint it. I'm kind of just building up my shapes in the back. How are you guys doing? Oh, there's a little flag off of this that I just noticed. How cute is that? I didn't even notice it before. Do you guys see it? It's a flag or something hanging off here.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, it's adorable. It's a nice little detail that I love, just a little thing like that. I don't even have to know what it is. I just like it. So it's already 12 and I'm not really finished, but I want to start, sharing with each other. I know some of you guys have to go, so I'm gonna call it finished in a minute. Finish for now. Anyway. Obviously, there's always time to put more in. but in the interest of time, kind of loose, and probably won't have time to really do everything we want to do today. So but I'll finish that there. And also it's not dry, so getting like this crisp detail here at the edge is really hard. So if it's dry up here, I just want to show you guys, you could take a Posca pen and you could bring certain details back. So that's super helpful. Like you can bring back some of the white here, could bring back, if you've lost white or if you just didn't use it, you can use it here. For example, the masts in the ship, or in some of the background stuff. Posca pens are great for this. Sometimes just for the little bits of highlight of white. Right there, maybe, like that kind of thing. So I'll stop it and show you guys. It's a nice little quickie. So it still probably needs some more work, and it's too wet to do that now. But it's off to a good start. It needs more dark around the window here. It needs more dark here on this side of the boat to make it more interesting, and probably just a tiny bit more in the background as well to make it a little more interesting. But it's off to a good start. If I did this in 10 minutes, you know, I was out in the harbor, like sitting somewhere and looking out, let's say Peter's Landing, I'd be pleased with it. It'd be a nice capture. You see, most of you guys are looking down. So is there anybody who is finished, stopped? Maybe finished is the wrong word. Oh, also it needs like a bright point or two somewhere. So it's very neutral in color. And a lot of the time I'll feel like, oh, it needs, even if it doesn't have it, like it needs a red point somewhere. Or it needs a bright blue or bright yellow somewhere. It's just missing it. Like, for example, the bright blue that I saw is actually here. But I could really put it in because it was too wet. But like this line was really much bluer in the picture. But you could see as I put it in there, it bleeds. But it just amps up the color a bit and makes it less like samey. A lot of the time when people are painting boats, they'll put a little yellow something in there, even if it's not really there. But it just kind of gives your eye somewhere to rest for a second. Do you guys see what I just did? So in lieu of that flag or whatever it was, I just put like a tiny bit of yellow there, you know, and it kind of gives your eye somewhere to look, even if it wasn't really there in the picture. So this needs a little more drama. It's gonna have to wait till it's dry. But if there's anybody who has any questions, comments, or wants to share, raise your virtual hand. I hope that you guys learned a few things today. You know, 2 hours is just a short workshop time. You got to go forth and practice. Go to Peter's Landing, go to the Pelican Isle and sit and have lunch and paint. Yep, Michelle. We can't see your video, but you can ask a question. Go for it.
The pen, could you say the brand or the
Oh,
type?
sure. Yep. This is Posca, Posca. And I get the bright white one. There's tons of colors of these. They're paint markers. So they're actually acrylic paint. And they come in different sizes. So you can get them thin and thicker. I have both. So I love to put like a little dot of, when I'm doing ships, I'll put like a little dot of sparkle. All it is where the light is hitting the stainless steel railing, for example. Just gives you a little something in the painting. People won't notice it as the dot. It just reads as a bit of sparkle. So I love these and they last for a long time. Got to shake them up. And then when you first start using them, you have to prime the tip. It's a soft tip. Don't get the metal tip. Get it's like a fabric tip or a nylon tip or something.
This is Marcia. is it like gouache?
Yes, it's like using gouache. You can also use gouache. So quite often I'll just straight from the tube, stick my pointy brush into the gouache. And if I want a rougher line, the gouache is great with a brush. If I want a less rough line, more literal, then the Posca pen is wonderful. Hillary, I see your hand is up. Did you want to share, Hillary?
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Oh,
So
that's-
the first mistake I made was not to use arches, but yeah, it's.
Ooh, that's lovely. You put yours against a headland, which I love.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna start from with this.
I can't tell you didn't use great paper. I mean, it looks wonderful to me.
Thank you.
Frameable, really nice. I
Thank
hope you enjoyed
It
today.
was fun. Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome. I'm gonna go to Joyce.
Okay,
Hi, Joyce.
hi. I'm using my phone today, so it's a little bit different.
Oh, that's nice.
Let
too.
me spot you. It's sideways for some reason for us.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
way?
love the
Really
tube.
good.
Oh, I love that.
books.
Really nice.
Really good.
That's
Thank
so
you.
nice, Marcia. I mean, Joyce,
I've
excuse
got-
me. So beautiful.
I haven't got to the sky yet on the back.
That's
there,
okay.
but
You
it's a
got
start.
time. That's really pretty. I see you prepped another painting. So those sketches of the boats you did, you can turn into another painting.
Oh yeah, those are the multiple boats.
Really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice composition too. That's great. Did I miss anyone with hands up?
I'm here.
Marcia.
Yeah.
Hi.
Um,
Want to share?
That's nice.
you can see
Oh.
my mistakes where I was gonna put a door here or something to darken, because my windows are off center. And I didn't look close enough. I didn't notice that there was the buoy and I just drew the line there, but oh well, it
That's
was like,
okay. It looks like it's like windy and it's pulling tight. So a lot of the time
Yeah.
that buoy line will pull tight, and other times it will slag. And you know what? That mistake that you just pointed out, I wouldn't have even noticed it. If I looked really closely, I might have thought that you put a shadow on that side. That's all. Love the
that's what it
little
looks
flare.
like to me. I was trying to put
Yeah.
gouache over it while you were talking, but of course it was too wet and, but I really, Anne, I just think you're a great teacher. I really enjoy your classes.
Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate that. I really enjoy teaching you guys. You're good students. All right, I see Michelle, you've got your hand up again. Yeah,
With reflections, would you say there are any rules about like, it seems like they're darker?
darker mostly,
but-
except when your hull is really dark, it can be quite light. Or even in
And
this
then,
one, the water was,
What about? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And what about cooler or warmer?
you know what?
than-
I try to create a mix. That's a good point. You can bring the reflections forward if you create some warmth in them. So I just do that naturally. It's funny, I don't always even talk about it, but I added some yellow and put
Oh.
made it green. So I've got this for warmth in the front too. So yeah,
Thank you.
reflections are like shadows. They should have the color in them. They're not a flat color. They should have the color of the object they're reflecting, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, good
Thank
good
you.
point. Yeah, and have fun with reflections. It's almost the most fun part of what you're painting sometimes. Like just those little, swing your brush and have a great time with it. Because no one's going to say that's not what those reflections really look like. You got the perspective wrong, so you can really have fun with that part. Yeah, okay, I got Pat. Pat, you're on mute. So you're going to want to unmute. Are you going to share? Great. We love seeing what Pat does.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Oh, wow, Pat.
Oh,
So
that's so great.
painterly, so
Wow, look at-
beautiful. That is so simplified and so lovely. Ooh, wait till you take the tape off. It's gonna look even better. Sometimes that's the most fun part of the painting, actually, is taking the tape off. Thanks for sharing, Pat. I know everybody likes to see each other's work. You don't have to share if you don't want to. So Pat got it really simply what I was trying to do. I just didn't pace myself enough or didn't let it dry, but I'm gonna darken this here when it's dry. I can still feel how wet it is. And just also darken this so that there's more shadow on this and this becomes lighter. And then I may even darken this side a little more, but I won't do it until I do this first. So that in that picture, one of the best parts about it is the fact that you've got the dark and the light. So
Will
nice
you
capture.
will you post that when you're done so we
The
can see
painting?
where
Yeah, I would
yeah,
love to.
Great,
Yeah,
thanks.
you're welcome. Anybody else feel like sharing or have any questions or comments?
I was gonna say, I think sometimes, like, I know with me, I try and get it painted fast, like we do with our happy hour, and but it's like about pacing. If you said letting it dry and adding later, I had to remember.
Oh, absolutely. We do. You know, when I'm showing you guys what to do, I want to show you what it looks like finished, right? So that's why sometimes
Uh-huh.
I don't really get to do that, and I don't want to necessarily like go, oh, this is you know, this is a time where I'm going to stop and go use the hair dryer. I don't want to do that, you know. So
Right.
yeah, so but I will. I promise to show. Yeah, that's the biggest thing about watercolor is taking your time. Like letting
Yeah.
things dry.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can lose a lot of your white when things bleed. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
trying to put the tip jar. Somebody just asked me, will I put the tip jar? I'm trying to look for my link, and of course I lost it. So give me a quick second. If you enjoyed today and you'd like to tip me, I always appreciate it. It pretty much these days is just my paper fund. That's what it is. So, but you don't have to, of course. It's always been a pay as you wish situation, but here we go. Here's my Venmo link in there. And let's see. We got any other raised hands? I'm trying to see. Yep. Esther, did you want to share? We'd love for you to. There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
First I just wanted to thank you. Sorry I joined in late, but
That's okay.
Minnie invited me and I almost forgot about it, and
Oh,
then I figured
thank you for
jump in.
coming.
Hi, Esther.
Yeah.
Hi, Esther.
Hi. But just wanted to thank you. And I didn't get to painting. I was sketching, and then I just wanted to watch what you're doing because I'm
Yeah.
not a watercolor artist. I do acrylics and stuff, but
Oh, great. Thank you for
I
joining.
did, yeah, but I don't know if you could. I just did a sketch for now, but
That's great. Yeah, that's a
just
great sketch.
I don't know.
Will you paint that?
Yes, I will. But just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, you're
And
welcome. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome anytime.
I really enjoyed this. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to join in another one on time.
Yeah, and then for those of you guys who want to go back, you know, the links it'll be up on my YouTube channel. It's a public video, so you can watch it. Anyone can watch it. Feel free to share it with your other friends. And then if you go into that Eat Paint Live channel on my YouTube, you will see tons of other recordings that we've done. We've done value, we've done negative painting, we've done how to paint water, how to paint colorful skies, how to paint the mountains, painting clouds, perspective. We've just done composition. I think there are 4 different videos on composition, so there's so many videos up there that you can have fun watching. And what's nice about watching the video is you can pause it and sketch and paint along, or rewind it, or you can even speed it up. Right on YouTube, you can watch it at 1.5 speed. And so, yeah, hope you guys will just have fun with those in your free time. That's why we record them, not just for the people who miss them, but so you can go back and rewatch them. Ginny, did you want to share with us?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jean.
you're muted. You're muted, Ginny, but I see you holding
Yeah,
your
no,
paper.
I was looking in the mirror with it to see how bad it is.
Oh no, Ginny, it's beautiful.
That's nice, Ginny.
Yeah,
Are you going to put some more darks in there? Usually you
I'm,
add
I'm
darks
not,
at the end.
I'm not even close to finish because you're so fast.
Mhm.
You know, you were already painting when I was still drawing.
I know, but the problem is I named this 5-minute boats, so I had to go
Oh,
fast. That's really nice, Ginny. It's very pretty. It actually would be considered finished by many people, you know?
No, it's not
I just
finished.
know. Okay. Is there
You know
anyone?
what I
else who
wanted to
has-
do, Anne? Do you remember these? That's what
No.
I want to do.
What are those?
Remember you taught us to do this?
Nope. What are they? I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah, we did all these different ones and we can use them for backgrounds for other things.
Where we did it along the line, even the credit card? Was that the
Yeah.
credit- Yeah.
It wasn't a credit card. It was just drawing wood on the line. So I was thinking a boat would be real good against this one.
Ooh,
Yeah, you're right.
okay. I don't remember doing those. I really don't. It must have been.
Well, I don't listen to anybody else, so I know it's you.
I mean, it sounds like something I would do. I just don't remember. We did it along the line. Did we fold it or?
Nope. I believe we just painted a line and then we tipped it so it would go wherever.
Oh, that's
Wow.
fun. I love that idea.
Yeah, so I was going to use it for a background for something.
Yeah, that's really great. So here's the thing too, is that even if you use it, whether you paint positive and you paint darker boats against it, some of those lighter
Yeah.
backgrounds you can still use for negative painting. So you don't have to just have white in a negative painting. You can tint the background and you could still use a negative painting technique to go over it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Some
was
of you
thinking
guys-
I might use that for some trees, just change it a little bit. I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm just giving you guys ideas, but I'll show
Okay.
you guys on my Instagram. And some of you guys will know this from my Instagram is that recently I did this boat here. It was a sailboat, a slooping sailboat. You guys remember
It's so
seeing this?
beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, I
Thank you.
see. I see.
Well, it's hard to
Yeah.
see it in Instagram with the light shining. on.
No, I
But
can see
there
it.
was a blue painted background. And I just
Alright.
went over it with a darker blue to make the lighter sail stand out, but the whole thing was blue. And so
Wow.
you can do that with your background, for example, even if it's all different colors in the background, as long as you darken and leave that shape there, you can still use it for negative painting. So that's kind of a fun thing
Huh.
to play around with. Yeah, just as an inspiration. Yeah. All right, well, we're way over on time today. So unless anyone has any other comments or wants to share, Minnie's waving. Okay, Minnie,
Okay, so here's my boat.
let me get rid
Oh,
of my.
how nice. Nice, nice,
Oh, that's
nice.
so
That's very
good,
nice.
Minnie.
The only I
Can you
messed
hold
up
it
on
back
this.
a little so we could see the whole thing? Oh yeah, so pretty, Minnie.
I messed up on this boat here.
Where? I mean, we can't tell.
It
Oh, you
just,
can't tell?
No, it looks great. It's so painterly. It's so you and Hillary really achieved these very painterly looking paintings today. By
Thank
that I
you.
mean you really have such a nice hand in your brushstrokes. Very pretty.
Oh,
Thank you for
you.
sharing. Michelle?
So I'm just a little confused. Like I get it when you say you could put a mask on, like on the fresh white paper so that you will retain that white. But it sounds like you're also saying you could maybe have paint down and it dries and then you
Yes.
can mask that to
Mask it or just paint around it. Yeah. So do you have a background in oil or acrylic painting by any chance?
oil.
Okay, so it's very counterintuitive or sometimes hard to make that switch with watercolor where you would have to do your lights in your brain because in oil you do the lights last, right? So in watercolor you have to do whites first, or lights first. So we paint light to dark versus dark to light or any way you want in oil. So yeah, so let's say you painted the whole background a lovely yellow. If you paint it over it with a navy, then you'll get a tint of green and you could avoid the part that you wanted to look yellow. Let's say it's the sun. So I have a whole class on negative painting, a whole workshop. If you're interested in what that looks like, yeah, you can see that. You can find that on my channel. It's really
That's
neat.
YouTube. Yeah.
And it's a
Great.
very
Thank you.
common way for, sorry to interrupt you, it's a very common way for watercolorists to reserve the lights in their painting, especially the white of the paper, which is always the brightest white that you're going to have, even brighter than a white paint, for example, that you add on top of it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for participating, your awesome comments and your questions, and also just for sharing your artwork with us. I love doing these live draws. It's probably more than you guys like doing them with me. I just love them. So thank you for continuing to come and to support me. And I'll have another one at the end of this month. So you got to just watch out for that one. Yeah. All right, everybody. So practice in the meantime, and I'll see you soon.
What is?
Oh,
Okay,
Diane.
bye.
Yeah.
No, that was me, Minnie. I was going to ask, what did you paint Friday for the coffee house?
Coffee hour Friday. Oh yeah. Anyone who doesn't know, I do a Friday watercolor happy hour. And we did a woman meditating. So we're still doing figures right now. I
Okay,
didn't put it up on my Instagram. It's not mine. I didn't finish it.
okay.
Yeah. I'll send it to you. I'll text it to you so you know what we did.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Anybody
I
who
just-
doesn't come to those, send me your email address and I'll put you on the list.
I just wanted to thank you. You know, I'm a slow painter, but I'm going to continue.
It's
with it.
okay. Yeah, we all paint at different paces. Even for 5-minute boats, we're still, that's just the name of the workshop. So that's just
And my right hand is still in a sling. So
I'm so glad to see you here. Thanks,
Thank you,
Diane.
Anne.
You're welcome,
Thanks.
Vicky. Take
Bye,
care,
everybody.
Thank you, Anne. Have a good rest of
Bye,
the day.
Yeah, have a good one.
bye.
You guys.
Bye, Esther.
Bye.
Bye, Esther.
Bye, Minnie.